are in session. Do we have a quorum? Let's have a roll call. Dave Brennan?
I'm here.
You're here. Melinda, are you here online?
Present.
Thank you, Melinda. Terrence, are you here online? Craig? Jean? No? Chuck Scalise, are you here online? Mark Tannenbaum is here in the flesh. I'm not sure that's a quorum. That is? Oh, okay, 3. All right, wonderful. So we're very grateful to have the race executive director, Aaron Snippert, here, and bureau chief, Jackie Spry, here. Thank you so much. And cultural resource manager, Matthew Falcone. And it's wonderful to see everybody once again. I apologize for my absence here's Jean coming in, Craig coming in now. That's wonderful. So I'd like to move to see if there is any correspondence that came into the committee. There is?
No, we have no correspondence.
No correspondence. Hi, Jean, Craig.
Hi.
No correspondence. So did everybody get a copy of the minutes of the last meeting? And if so, can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
I will move.
Would you move? Thank you, Jean. Jean moves to approve the minutes from the last minute. David, would you like to make a second? There's a second. Thank you so very much. So we have a yes and a second. So all those in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting of July 7th, say aye. Aye. So motion carried. Is there any new business or hearing and actions for the historic nominations? I think there are none on our schedule, but we're certainly open for opportunity. So old business. So we have some interesting things in the old business. With the draft historic signage legislation, something we've been working on here in the committee, and the staff, of course, most diligently. So Matthew or Jackie, who wants to explain that well?
I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Give me just a moment and I will pull this up on our screen so that we can work through it together. I know that there were some comments that were provided as well in email between the commission. I think we should probably bring those forward here and kind of talk through some of those points. So I think first, we have signage first, right? Yep, historic signage. There we are. Let me zoom in a bit. Take it to look.
Pardon us, the parking situation's a
It's
little...
a mess out there.
It's a little
Good
dicey
to
out
see you. It's been a long time. Thanks for coming.
I've been around the block a few times.
Great to see you. Yeah, I have parked down by the park.
Right. So now that we're all situated, so the first piece of prospective legislation that we're looking at is the creation of a historic signage. And that would encompass a few different components. So it's a historic marker program where there would be a freestanding pole, with a historic sign on it. Another part of this legislation is looking at the wayfaring signs on the streets. So in addition to a street name like Cherry, there would be a placard that goes above if someone lives within a historic district. And that is to help delineate the boundaries of those districts. There would be one for districts that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. There would be a different wayfaring sign for those that have a local designation. And if we are so fortunate to have an overlapping one, we'll have a specific design for that as well.
Right.
But for process, I think the historic marker is the one that I think there's a lot of conversation around that we should bring up in here. I know one of the points was how it would be funded. And I think there was additional conversation around exactly what the process looks like. And so I'm happy to take you through both. For the process, it would look very similar to what we have now for historic landmarks. So you'd have an applicant, either someone who lives in the city or a group, fill out an application that we provide them, and it would be for a person, a thing, an event, something that is to be recognized. And they would provide text and some research and background around what that is. You would go through an initial review with me as staff, and then it would be presented to you as a commission to make a decision. We can do this in kind of a couple different ways. We can kind of group them all together, so like once a year, we can devote part of the meeting to review these applications, or we can set it up at multiple points throughout the year. Part of the consideration for this is that we want to make sure the signs that we're approving aren't duplicated in another way. So if there's, for example, already a state historic marker devoted to a subject, we wouldn't consider adding another sign because we don't really want to get to a point where there's multiple competing signs. The idea is really to be able to recognize and honor history, especially a fabric that is no longer with us, right? If there's not a building, or if it's been demolished at some point, then you have the opportunity to commemorate the event, the person, with this sign. In terms of funding, the legislation is pretty broad in that the group has to provide funding for its creation.
So I was going to ask that, Matthew, is that so the individual or the group that applies for the signage, the funding of that sign and the fabrication of that sign is on them, but we would set what it would look like so that there's a uniformity of style.
Right. So we would establish exactly what the sign looks like. We would also have a process by which it would be placed. So these signs would go in the public right of way.
Right.
So the area between the street and the
Right.
sidewalk. And yes, they would need to pay for its fabrication. They would also need to basically provide us the sign, so donate the sign to the city, and then we would take care of it in perpetuity.
Oh,
if it ever needed to be repainted, if it was, say, accidentally hit by a car and needed to be replaced, it's all things that we would take into consideration.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
So the person would get a tax deduction for the sign?
I don't believe so. I think that they would need to donate it to a nonprofit in order to receive a tax deduction, but that's a good question for our solicitor. I can ask.
Yeah.
I know when that would
I
work.
mean, if they're paying for it, it might be a nice benefit.
I would suspect that I think that we're going to see applications primarily from groups of people, either nonprofit organizations or people who have a dedicated interest in history that want to bring this forward. So I would imagine they'll probably already have kind of some kind of arrangement with
Like
the
the
nonprofit.
History Center or something?
Exactly.
But, and who, there's some, the signs that a lot of the buildings that have been privately renovated are really lovely. And I just wondered if, was that actually being done by downtown Erie or?
This is a couple different things, and actually I think it's a point that Commissioner Scalise brought up the other time that we were talking about this, is that there are so many different types of markers and signs within the city, both freestanding and those that are affixed to buildings, and they run the gamut. Some are provided by outside organizations, some are individually owned, some belong to the History Center. It's kind of all over the place. So for the city, we would be able to keep an inventory of all the signs that are in the public right-of-way. So the freestanding markers that the History Center wanted to bring forth, we'd be able to keep an inventory of those and also make their contents publicly accessible, so that if somebody wanted to know more about a person or a house, that we would have a matching landing page that goes with the marker. Same for ours. For the ones that are affixed to people's houses or for individual buildings, We would have a marker program that is specifically limited to buildings that have been listed on our register. We wouldn't have any kind of oversight or jurisdiction on others. I think that it's there's a possibility for a partnership, that if we have this kind of comprehensive program that's meant for signs, there might be an opportunity to work together to have reciprocity. Because ultimately this is all for the public good, right? For education and awareness of what is historic within the city. So,
But we would have that uniformity, so it would all, like even on a private house, that sign would look the same
only if it has been listed
on
as a,
on the
ours.
local
Yep.
the local register.
And so by the same measure that we would create a specific design for city historic freestanding markers, we would also work with a designer to create a plaque. And I know this is a conversation that we, I think, had a couple years ago before we paused the landmarking program. But yeah, we would work with a designer and then have them branded as City of Erie.
Excellent.
I believe you have.
So I think we need to have a motion
online.
for that. Sorry, correct? I'm sorry?
I think that Commissioner Meyer online has her hand up.
Oh, yes, Commissioner?
So I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So the volume of the meeting is incredibly difficult to hear. I have the volume maxed out on my device, and I'm having to hold it up to my ear. And I could not hear Craig speaking at all. So I just wanted to raise your awareness to that. Second, I don't know that the issue of ownership is well defined in the draft legislation, and so I would just recommend that ultimately the question of ownership be more clearly defined in the draft legislation.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they would like to say about this particular?
I have a question.
Sure, of course.
I think you answered almost all the questions that I had sent you, but the question about the community support, that's always kind of a tough one, because you could have a wonderful person or event you're trying to commemorate, but how would you judge that, or is it just an administrative thing, administrative approval?
I think that we can probably delineate what that looks like in when we put together a policy or procedure for this. So community support might look like a letter from an established community organization. I know that also we can specify that it might be a group that's related to this history. So for example, a church group or a nonprofit organization. I think that for us that we should have as kind of broad as interpretation of community support as possible so that it enables people to be able to access the program. This also might look like having, I'm trying to think of kind of other ways, like a petition, for example, if, let's say there was a marker that wanted to be put up for I don't know, like pepperoni rolls, for example. And so somebody might go and canvass, like local bakeries, or just make canvass the general public with a change.org petition to show that there is, public support for this, that it isn't just a particularly niche subject. So, but we can, I think, specify exactly kind of what that looks like so there's greater clarity.
So each one will be judged upon whatever is submitted or proposed, because it could be, 10,000 names, or it could just be some type of reports or history or something like that. So,
Right.
Okay.
Before we put this up for a vote, would you like to have a chance to reword it as Commissioner Myers has suggested?
I think that if the commission would like to make a positive recommendation with a contingency, then I can ensure that those changes are incorporated so it can move forward and we'll still have the opportunity
That was my question.
to revise. Yep.
If I could, then I would like to make a motion that we move this motion forward with a preliminary vote with a caveat that you will bring us back a slightly worded, edited wording on the particular topic that Commissioner Myers has suggested, and that we could have a final vote next month and not really hold up the process if that's all according to Hoyle.
Sure.
Could we do that? Otherwise, it kicks the can too far down the road, and I think we need to want to get started on this. So I would so move if I'm allowed to. I think, right, I'm the chair, I'm not supposed to do that.
Entirely up to you, the commission.
But I would move to go forward with this I would move to accept this with the caveat that there will come back to us a slightly edited version, particularly or specifically in the wording of homeownership and how we define that as according to Commissioner Myers' suggestion.
Well, I know you're making a motion, but I also wanted to note, so there's also inconsistency with under the uniformity of the plaques and the signage. One states that the commission shall from time to time amend and
I
or
lost you, Melinda.
can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, so under uniformity, where it calls for the uniformity of both the landmark plaque and then the uniformity for the signage or markers, one says the commission shall from time to time approve or amend the design, and the other one says the cultural resource manager shall approve and amend from time to time. I would just simply advocate for consistency.
Got it.
That's good.
So, and I do apologize, Mark, for interrupting the motion. I just wanted to make sure that there are, a couple of other things that are noted with the draft.
I think that's perfectly fine. It's wonderful to have a couple of set of eyes on things and to make sure that when we have a chance to make the ordinance, it's well worded so that it doesn't create confusion in the future. And that would be my concern, is that we clean the language up in a way that makes for no ambiguity for the citizens of Erie in the future. So if I could amend my recommendation, I would say also to look for continuity errors in content, and then be able to present this to us in next month, and then we'll be able to vote yea or nay on the package itself. But I'd like to vote now on the process moving forward, if that's possible.
Sure.
All those in favor? Oh, actually, has it be seconded? Sorry.
Oh, you want me to,
Somebody does.
did you second, Chuck?
I'll be pleased to say.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion to move forward carries with an opportunity to vote on the final documents and the final wording at the next meeting next month. I think there's a second amendment, is that correct?
Yep. That takes us into the draft archive legislation.
Okay.
And if you give me just a second, I'll pull that up as well.
So is the next, okay, there you go.
Let's make that a bit bigger. All right. This, which is, I think, a far more simplistic piece of legislation, is
Okay.
to create, formally create an archive here at the city.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
to formally create an archive
Okay.
here at the city.
Yes, I understand.
So over the past year or so, we've been working through to collect old documents, primarily documents, but also the city is in receipt of lots of different objects as well. So we have a bit of a collection, and those look like items that have been donated or that have been gifted to us, like through our city partnership program, for example. And in the same vein of creating an inventory of kind of all these different markers, we are very much looking to make sure that all of these documents, all these things that we have are accessible, both internally so that we have comprehensive lists, but also externally so that the public has access to these things as well. For the collection, because not every item is on display at every time, in a moment in time, and then also because with documents, especially with things like past plans and with our records that relate back to council, those things tend to sit, and it doesn't really do anyone any good if we're not working through to digitize and make them accessible to the public. So in this way, it helps us to think through kind of how and what this might look like so that we are continuing to have transparency and accessibility for all of these things within City Hall and also outside City Hall. And so in that way, the hope here is to create both a program that would enable us to start thinking through this as a collection and all of these documents and all of these objects, and then also how we can go about making them accessible to all. And a big part of that would be digitization, because most of the plans that we have and most of the documents we have, and photographs as well, are not digitized. And being able to do this in a way that has a bit of infrastructure to it and have perhaps a committee that's able to talk through different issues that come up, like how do we prioritize? And I think that was one of the questions that was raised earlier. With all of these different materials, what gets digitized first? What should be accessible first? Especially because we're always conscious of the resources that we have internally at the city and making sure that we're investing them in the right way. So with the creation of this archive, it sends an internal and external message that the upkeep of these documents is important. And not only important, but it is kind of part of the mission of the city, part of the mission of the HRC, is to make sure that we're being good stewards of our past and making the past as accessible as possible. So that especially decisions that are made today and plans that are being drafted today take in mind what was done before, so that there is continuity between person to person when it comes to staff and generation to generation when we're looking even kind of further back. I can tell you that from my perspective as staff, who's worked on several different nominations and worked with contractors on nominations, being able to access information is one of the biggest hurdles that we come into. City records are vast, and they are very diversified as well. Each department has been stewards of their own records for as long as they've existed. And in this way, it helps kind of tie everything together and establish some new policies and procedures. And that way, we can be better stewards of the things that we have. So I know all of you had questions of how this might work. I think that what's before you today is really the kind of very broad framework to create this entity. I think that the next step in the process, that should council also support it, would be to put together this committee of people and then start looking at a work plan, some needs, some policy in place that would likely look like, I think, what you all have been through when we did the historic preservation plan, right? Of trying to get a sense of everything together and then working through what the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years looks like for our collection.
So, because I have all kinds of questions.
Sure.
But rather than get into the nitty-gritty, are we proposing now to create an ad hoc committee to flesh out the process? Or is that what I'm hearing?
I think the first step in it would be, this, I'd say, it really is the ad hoc committee to kind of work through things. The creation of this entity is really the first question that has to be answered. Whether or not there's support on council to move forward with this. Otherwise we want to make sure that, again, we're investing our time and effort and energy into the right places.
Because I could bear down into questions, but I think that they're too soon to be asked, and I don't want to bog down this movement and process with detailed efforts that, the request for the request for details, when in fact it could change with whatever the committee really decides. Like, how do you keep the safety? Where is the stuff stored? How are you storing the stuff? Is it on site? Are we pulling all the things from all these, these rooms from all of the City Hall and storing them somewhere in City Hall? Is it off-site in City Hall? How do you get access? How do you keep that stuff safe? There's a million, and I don't want to get, what I'm trying to do is I don't want to get bogged down in the details and lose track of something that's important. So I'd like to be able to move forward with a proposal that would create the entity that would then come back to us with a much more step-by-step process, rather than stop the momentum, which again, like the similar one, I want to keep moving this forward without tripping over our feet.
Well, I think, again, a good analogy would be the creation of the HRC, right? Correct. The first step was really establishing that enabling legislation, making sure that got passed through council, that it was a priority, that it came into existence. And then the next step after that was to go back and create this plan. Right. And then after the plan, then became, a focus on policy, and then after policy became the execution. So, yeah, this is
I don't think it's the purview of this board to bore down into the details of how this is done. I think we want to be presented with, an overall vision, and then the staff carries that out. I don't believe it's really up to us to look over the shoulder of the staff and micromanage a process like this. I think our job is to macromanage that it gets done because it's important.
Right.
So if anybody would want to, I can make the motion, but if anybody else would like to make a motion that we form this, go ahead. Oh, Melinda, do you have something? I'm sorry. Commissioner Myers?
Yes, I'm sorry. So with the volume issue, my workaround has been to listen to the meeting on my phone via the Facebook live feed, but there's a 30-second delay. So again, my apologies for the complexity of participating via Zoom, but I just wanted to note that in this draft legislation, it calls for the cultural resource manager to become the city's archivist. And I just want to note just how large of a responsibility that is, because, in most cities of this size, I would say that would probably be a job all on its own. And so I want to note just how complex time management could potentially be with looking at continuing to move forward with a historic resource program or a historic preservation program, as well as managing the responsibilities of the archives as well. So I just wanted to make sure that was vocalized, because I have worked with archives for close to 30 years now, both creating new archives and organizing existing archives, and I'm quite aware of the time commitment that is needed to do it properly. I also wanted to note that I think there is an assumption with the draft legislation that this is referring to both physical as well as digital archives. I just wanted to make note of that, because the digital archives really, they're very easy to overlook, but in today's day and age, digital archives are even more prevalent than the physical record keeping, right? So as the community and city government and all of its activities do more and more through digital platforms, I think it might be worthwhile to really call out both the importance of the preservation of the physical as well as the digital records of the city. And in that note, again, knowing how complex it is to both collect and manage digital archives, looking at the advisory board, I'm actually wondering if it should be 3 staff and 2 members of the community with archives expertise, just because in any case, archives really does require specialization. And I know that one of the city employees that's called out to be a representative on the advisory committee is a representative from the Erie City Council Clerk's office. I know, Matthew, your intent is to keep this as broad as possible, but I can't help but thinking that with the prevalence of digital records, it might also be prudent to have a required member of IT, the city's IT staff, serve on the advisory committee. So just some additional thoughts.
Thank you. So I think what I'm hearing is that there should be some kind of accountability for personnel and their time, as well as a procedure, and as I was thinking, even the equipment necessary to scan all these documents and making sure they're labeled in a way that you could find the data that's similar. You know, there has to be a template that is universal to everybody that's scanning all these documents and trying to keep them all electronic, and that's certainly one aspect. But even the physical things, I know how difficult it is to keep photographs right and objects and 3D objects and 2D objects and all these kind of things. And I'm thinking, my God, do you need a climate-controlled room? Okay, do you need white gloves to touch stuff? And I've seen some fairly elaborate, not just personnel, but equipment and storage space and filing cabinets and flat files, and I just think that would, and how that access, which I think is essential, ultimately how that access is provided, but then you have to have some person that lets that other person come in to have access. You have to make sure that all those documents went back in the filing cabinet and that they weren't in somebody's briefcase I'm not casting aspersions, but safety of our community assets, I think, is part of the purview of this board.
All the above. And
All the above.
I'm
right.
looking over at my bureau chief, because these are conversations that have been well in the works for the past several weeks, if not months.
But again, I don't want to get logged up in the trees for the forest.
Right.
I want the big picture to be move forward. At the same time, I want to make sure that we're looking at all the details.
Right.
If I could just make a few comments to Melinda's also. Yes, we talk about this frequently.
I bet.
This is enabling legislation that would create a archive program,
Right.
essentially.
Because Jackie, it sounds expensive to me. Okay,
well,
I keep seeing dollar signs.
Yes, and space is absolutely critical, and that's undetermined, to be determined, at the moment. So all of those things are absolutely something that we discuss. But for the purpose of this meeting is to really enact this legislation, because we do not have anything currently at the city. And Matthew's absolutely right. With Matthew coming into City Hall and his work with archives and knowledge behind all of that, he knows, and he's brought it to our attention, that things are all over and not stored properly. I mean,
Yes.
the departments have done the best they
Right.
could. So that's first. And then with regard, and I hope you can hear me, Melinda, with regard to capacity, we acknowledge that, Matthew is one person that is in the historic preservation program. And with a city our size, I recall the state saying that, typically we would have 3 to 4 people running even just the historic preservation program. So I am very cognizant of capacity and making sure that as this program grows, that Matthew has the support that he would need to run both of these programs. So it is top of mind, and but it also, and Matthew, I'm not sure if the commissioners are aware of your background in archival. I don't know if they know that, but maybe also it might be helpful just to give a little bit of your background so that they are aware of that you've worked in this field and that you have a lot of experience around it.
I don't get to talk about myself in that kind of way.
I know you don't like to do it, but I think it's important just to be aware of your background at this point. Sorry.
No, you don't need to be sorry. I'm also recognizing that technology issues are probably, the laptop may be making them worse. So yes, I as my bureau chief said, I do have experience working in archives, both with museums and formal archives. I was trained as a registrar at a museum. If everybody else mutes, if you're not talking into them. Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, so yes, as I was saying, I've been trained as a museum registrar, which is someone who is like an archivist at a museum, that they're able to work with objects and identify treatment plans and storage plans for objects themselves. I've also worked at a museum that has an archival component, primarily with lithographs and printed materials. So I'm also aware of paperworks and kind of how storage works and overall what they need. I think that to Commissioner Meyer's point, absolutely correct. There are people who specialize in this, who go to school specifically for this thing. I think that as we continue to grow and as this program grows, that we are going to need somebody who has that specialized expertise and can be doing this either on a daily basis or a part-time basis, but has that kind of oversight for what we're doing. One of the most, I think, beneficial things is that, again, as we, as the Historic Review Commission, contextualize ourselves within kind of much broader framework, right? That we, as the Historic Review Commission, have an agreement with the state of Pennsylvania through PHMC. And when you look at PHMC's offerings, they also very much have an archival program. And they have lots of different resources, both in training and funding, when it comes to being able to access how to run an archive, how to create an archive. And so in this way, we are expanding our partnership, or would be expanding our partnership with PHMC. I know that, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but some of the funding that we have received as a certified local government, other entities have also used for their archives. So different townships and municipalities were able to access that same kind of funding for digitization, for support when it comes to additional personnel to do digitization, or to provide additional expertise. So, I think that to kind of take it back to the point of what we're doing today is really making a recommendation to City Council and saying, this is important. This is important enough where we need to create something and start working through this process so that we leave our records and the structure of what we do in government in a better place for the next person. Because I think, as you've all alluded to, an archive at the city is a monumental thing, and it's going to be a multi-generational effort. So the most important thing that we can do now is try to figure out if it is important enough to create, and then start thinking through what that structure looks like. So that's it.
In my imagination, it's going to take a room this size. I mean, there are many authorities that are attached to the city. So whether you're talking about the Water Authority, which has its own archives, and the Cemetery Authority, which has its own archives, and the Redevelopment Authority, which has its own archives. And the question then would be, are we gathering all of that data from, all of these very, the streets archives? There's just tons of stuff. It's like recreation. It's never. You could fill the room just with the stuff on the waterfront. And I think this is a huge task. I think it's going to cost a lot of money, and I think people are going to have to be hired and funded, and city council has to be involved in that. That's my own bet. So I'm hesitant because I'm sorry, I didn't turn mine on. I'm hesitant because I'm afraid that it could have a hefty price tag, and there should be some kind of plan, a business plan, a model that says, and this is how we pay for it. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying it makes sense that this sounds like a big task and an expensive task. I think it's a worthy task, but I would like to know how it gets paid for before we embark on it.
I imagine. No, it's not you. I think that we were doing fine before. We might need to readjust our mic sensitivities. No, these are questions that are going to come up at council as well. You're absolutely right. And I know that what we have discussed as staff, on the staff level over these past several months is, how do we fund this? What does it look like? But a bit of a cart before the horse is that in order to be able to access this funding and get support from, as I mentioned before, like the HMC, it's something that the city has to be able to demonstrate that we're taking very seriously, right? And the creation of a specific program, as opposed to kind of it being tacked on to somebody else's job, is something that is very much going to be looked for. So don't by any means think that a recommendation for this would be the end of the conversation. It's really the beginning. And as this goes along and as this goes to council, there's going to be lots of other questions that come along with it.
So I agree. So with all those caveats, how does one move forward at this time? Have you a motion that you feel at this time covers what we're being asked to do? Or should we come back next month? Because, again, I'd rather wait a month and have it right than have a situation where we vote on something and now we have a procedure that's murky. But I wanted to hear your opinion.
I don't have suggested language for you for a motion. It's really up to what you think is best. If there's more information that you as a commission would like to see, if there's more questions that you have, it's entirely at your discretion. I'm happy to come back next month and bring kind of answers to those. Or you can make a recommendation today. It's as you see fit.
I mean, just as a conversation with the board, my thought would be that we hold this part back for a month until we can really get language that at least covers as long as the language in the proposal covers the gray areas that staff is going to suss out and ultimately come back to us with solutions to the things that were brought up, that I don't know if I want to vote on it this minute, if that doesn't hold things up too much. And again, I don't want to hold things up. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I'd like to have the cart. Let's figure out what the horses are. But I think the cart's a good idea. Do you know what I'm saying?
Give me a little bit more. So what specifically can I bring back to you next month?
Well, if we want to have something to vote on, that there has to be a proposal, that the language of the proposal covers the things that Commissioner Myers has come up, or anyone here on the board has come up to ask, how would these things be developed? Even if it's a little bit gray and say, we're still working out how these things will be resolved, at least we're acknowledging that those potential issues would be resolved before we create legislation.
Okay.
Because I remember when we started the commission, and then there were ultimate issues with the way the wording of the legislation, remember that? How that was, and then we had to backtrack and fix a problem because it wasn't explicitly designed in a way that answered all the questions, and then we had these trip-ups because of the language, and I'd like to prevent that from happening twice. So my recommendation is that we would table this for the moment, if that's not too harsh.
No problem.
Does the commission think of anything else? All good? Should we move to table this and bring it back to us as far as Robert's rules? Or we don't have to do it? We don't have to, I didn't think we had to do it. All right. Do we have to make a motion, like Robert's rules? Okay. Because it's, right.
Okay.
Does anybody on the commission, could they make such a motion that we table the existing motion at the moment in anticipation of a more detailed outline from the staff? Let's do it.
So the motion is to table this issue on the archive storage until we have some further information, further discussion, and then we could pick this up at a future meeting. I have the visit proposal.
Sounds good to me.
I second that.
So all those in favor of tabling this motion according to Commissioner Brennan's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? But I would like to say with this, I think it's a valuable, very valuable thing, but I think it's huge. I think this is a very big undertaking. I think it's a worthy undertaking. But I can't even imagine the volume of labor and work and time and effort and equipment and stuff that's going to go into this little project. And I'd like to see it a little more detailed, if I could, like what's included, who's included. Thank you.
Yes.
So are we on to old business, is that correct?
We're actually still in old business.
Okay, yes.
So that we move on then to some nomination status updates.
Oh, good.
The William and Mary Spencer House is going before council for the ordinance to change the zoning map. So it's at the very end of the process. It should be completed by the end of this month. The William Bedecker and Ratsatter House, the recommendations have been finalized with Planning Commission. Those two are being sent to council. So they'll be probably within, again, the next month, they'll have their first public hearing at City Council on it. And then the Erie Municipal Building, we had to circle back on. So it went to Planning Commission gave it consideration, but they were acting outside of their purview. And so we need to revisit that conversation with the Planning Commission before it continues on.
Okay.
Then that takes us to two other items. The Firehouse's MPDF. So this was a grant that we were awarded by PHMC to create a multiple property documentation form for our firehouses. Nice. The contract to enter into an agreement with EDR, which is the same firm that did our architectural survey recently, is going to City Council, actually next week rather, for consideration. And then so too is the City Park System Heritage Study. And this was funding that was given to us by DCNR, which is going to look very similar to what creating an MPDF would look like. So hiring a consultant to dig into the history of our parks, be able to talk to us about how they came into creation, kind of what they mean as a system, what kind of significance they had, all of the different details, even down to why they were named the way that they are and how the names have changed over time. So we were very fortunate enough that this is an early implementation project of the comprehensive Parks and Open Spaces plan that is being finalized. And at this point, it's all been, again, bundled and sent to council for their consideration so we can expend the funds and issue an RFP.
That's great. I think that's a wonderful project.
I can say that DCNR and PHMC, and I think everyone that we've talked to about this is very, very excited.
And we have the funding to do whatever's necessary to spend on this project. Great.
We budgeted in anticipation of receiving this grant, and very fortunate enough to have received it.
Hooray for the grant writer. I think that's great.
Yep. And that's it for me.
So this is, that was the Berwyn Planning Zoning updates, is that correct?
I don't have anything for this meeting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Mr. Snipper. How's it feel under that bus?
Yeah, so, as Jackie reminds me, so Wednesday, August 5th, you could have talked about the Greenway. It's yours now? No. So we're holding a ribbon cutting at the East Bayfront Greenway Trail Phase 1 Park on Wednesday at 5 p.m. So that is exciting in that, that's really a program and a project that we've been working on for well over 4 years now, from design charrettes in the neighborhood on through, this construction phase of that. And so ultimately moving on to hopefully phase 2, 3, as we continue to transform those, vacant, underutilized parcels into a public asset and drive public, private investment. So that's a big, exciting thing. So that's on council's agenda for their acceptance of transfer of those lots from the redevelopment authority over to the city. Really right now it's under a maintenance agreement, but so that's moving forward. We're working on a plan on infill housing development on redevelopment authority and land bank lots. Presented to the Planning Commission last month. So that's moving forward, hopefully here into the fall, winter, and into spring. We'll have more to report as far as that goes. And then when you flip over to the housing preservation side, certainly still trying to administer and push out housing rehabilitation funds to income qualified residents, landlords, and the like across the city of Erie to preserve housing stock within the city of Erie. Certainly we know elderly individuals and those living on fixed incomes have a hard time with deferred maintenance items, and certainly the assistance of providing grant funds to them helps preserve our much needed housing stock across the city of Erie. So working on those, but HRC commissioners are welcome to attend the ribbon cutting on Wednesday out at the East Bayfront Greenway Trail, Phase 1, 5 p.m.
Oh, great.
Between 400 block of East 6th and 7th.
400 block of East 6th and 7th.
Yeah, it stretches between East
Parade
6th and East 7th Street.
And Wallace, right? Where is that?
Between Parade and Wallace.
Correct. Oh, that's great. I think I saw this in the planning. I watched the Planning Commission's meeting online, and I think they kind of talked about this.
About the park?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a topic
and the
of
infilling and all that
conversation.
stuff.
The infill housing?
Yeah, I thought that was great, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's a super idea. Thank you. So, you Chief Executive, that is it. Does anybody have any good and welfare for the organization? Anything that people, would you like to speak?
Well, I happened to run into some folks from GE, and they have been toying with the idea of contacting us and maybe wanting help with making what's now
WabTech?
Yes, thank you, WebTech. Getting it on the national register, and obviously they'd be interested in our register too. So
That's great. It's a cool
it's
place.
something, and I got a text from one of the people, and I didn't bring my phone with me, so I'm sorry, but I will have a report next next month.
Look forward to it. Look forward to it. David, anything special that you'd like to say? Anything special that you'd like to say?
Not today.
Okay. PACA is going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony on Thursday at 2 o'clock. The mayor is joining us, and Tina Mangini, of course, is joining us. I invite everybody here because, of course, we are on the National Historic Register and on the City Historic Register, and we have hired all the individuals necessary to expend the dollars that we raised from Tom Hagen for the elevator. We have hired the contractor to install the windows that expend the money that we were able to raise through ECRA, and we've hired the contractor to build the walls on the 5th floor. All of this is 5th floor, and paint base abatement from a contractor to build units, and that is from funds that we acquired from the Erie Community Foundation. And so this is ready to go. And it did take us a long time. It's very hard to retrofit an old building and to get a plan that fits with the historic requirements. And it was painstaking, which is why I'm so concerned about these projects, because the details were just odorous, and onerous. And it just took a lot of work. So I think we're ready to do that, and we're going to cut the ribbon on Thursday at 2 o'clock, and we're going to invite the press. But I believe the Historic Commission is more than welcome, and I sure hope you join us. Anybody else? Do you have anything special to say? Anything else? Then I move to adjourn the meeting. Anybody second that?
Second?
There is a proposal and a second. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys, for coming.